Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining on this very sunny Thursday. I hope it's sunny where you are. It certainly is here. Um, I can see people that have joined. As I say, thank you for joining. Today, you will be able to ask questions via a chat function. Unfortunately, I can't see all your wonderful faces, but we will be able to get any questions you've got throughout as part of the chat. And I'll do my best to respond to any of those that come up. But there'll be a section at the end to go through all questions that we might have. I'm going to give people a few moments just to arrive in case there's any more late starters. Although I know plenty of people will want to be doing the recording as well. So yes, I mean if anybody has any questions now, do feel free to share them. But we will get going in just a few moments. Oh, sorry to hear it's not sunny. Laura, where are you? The Northwest. Ah, that's where I'm from. Back up in Blackburn, Lancashire, where I spent many a year in the rain. Yeah, one of the perks of moving south, I have to say, is a lot more sunshine. Okay, right. That's enough British chat about the weather. I'm gonna assume everybody now can see the slides. And if not, please do sort of shout out or chat out where possible. So yes, hello. We are here to talk about the future of compliance with AI and its impact on learning and the creation of learning in compliance. If you are joining, looking to find out how AI bots are going to keep your entire business safe and increase compliance, I'm sorry, this is not the space for you. But hopefully you'll get a lot out of it anyway. There are many wonderful things happening in the space of AI, and of course, this is just one area where we can start to use the tools to impact many things on behalf of our learners and our organizations. So, uh, first of all, just to look at the challenges that everybody's facing in compliance, the perceptions of compliance are pretty bad. It's just seen culturally as a tick box. It is boring with a capital B. It doesn't necessarily change behavior, and it kind of erodes the learning and development brand. I mean, and certainly when we take briefs for compliance, it is not uncommon for whoever is briefing me to sort of roll their eyes and sigh at the very mention of mandatory and compliance learning, which of course sort of runs counter to my entire perception of what compliance is. I love compliance. The secret is out. Put it out there on LinkedIn. I absolutely love it. It is a space where there is a huge opportunity, and the content that we can create in this space really does redefine people's expectations. And we'll talk a lot about that later. But aligned to those common perceptions currently of L&D, I wonder how many of you have seen this meme or how familiar this meme feels.
Well, let me take the wheel. It's too fast. How could you even tell what's on? I can tell.
I mean, the fact that this was doing the rounds all over Instagram, LinkedIn, even onto yeah, Twitter and LinkedIn as well, just shows some of the challenges that we face in that compliance space and what most of the world is thinking about the content that's created and the approaches that people take. So that learner experience currently is around sort of using of fear as a motivator for people. You know, whether you've missed your deadline to do it, you have to do it, or you don't get your bonus, or whether that's in the content people are seeing and engaging with as well. And we know fear is not the best motivator. It has a very short-term impact, and there's much better ways to connect with people. Content repeats every single year, so you feel like you're being banged over the head repeatedly with the same content, and that is not always the most accessible, the most engaging content either. Lots of text-based pieces that run through that. People are doing it all at the last minute. Culturally, that's not ideal, and people are sharing answers. Heaven forbid, even line managers are sharing answers, so people are away from their desk for as short a time as possible. And that sends a terrible message out to individuals and the whole business. And ultimately, scenarios that are created are not necessarily related to real work. And I think a lot of that comes from the need for lots of learning organizations to use off-the-shelf content, what feels like generic materials that work very well there, but ultimately it does not connect to the learner. So there is no connection to real work. And ultimately, that's part of that lack of driving behaviors because nobody understands it within their context. And so that ultimately that experience feels like compliance is not really helping me, the learner, as an individual to do anything, to progress, to stay safe, any of those things. So we've got to look at taking on all of these challenges in the best possible way. And we know that learning teams are now under more pressure than ever to engage their people. Actually, we see it, we work across comms and learning. We know that internal comms' entire mission is to engage people. We know that big challenges for L&D teams is to engage people. And so I see annual compliance, annual mandatory training as a real moment to engage people with a clear sense of purpose. We can drive positive engagement with the business. We can celebrate the work that people do and the way that that stacks up to the corporate purpose and what people are trying to achieve, the role that people play in society, the individual steps we can take to fight bad actors, and ultimately contribute to a better society all round. We can increase personalization, and we'll look at the ways that we can do that through scaled use of AI a bit later on. And also really thinking next step is how we can start to enable the assessment of soft skills through the mandatory training. I mean, people are always trying to do a decent skills assessment. And what better way than with the mandatory training, the annual training, everybody has to complete, and finding a way to do that assessment of skills to identify what is there in the business, what needs to be improved. And ultimately as well, this sort of true ambition, which as long as I've been in the learning industry, L&D teams want to be seen as a strategic advisor. And this is one place where absolutely there is a golden opportunity to become an advisor to risk compliance teams and support business growth in a safe way. So just to run through the rest of this structure, we've talked about the challenge for learning teams. We're going to move through how we increase engagement, what adaptive learning is and the opportunity that we have there, AI-powered programs and the ways that we can start to adopt the tools that are already at our disposal to make that happen, as well as look at some of our work in motion and have time for question and answers at the end. So without further ado, the stories that we tell really do motivate people, build understanding and engagement. And so if your story about mandatory and compliance is you just want people off the shop floor for as short a time as possible. You want them to effectively cheat and get through it. That sets a bad precedent for risk and compliance culture. And so the stories that we tell around that risk culture are absolutely integral. And as I said before, a lot of the content that we create around compliance is around things that really do inspire people to act. Talking about fighting terrorists, stopping drug dealers. These things really do inspire and motivate. And it's content that people want to engage with. I, doing some research recently, came across this example of content around data privacy. And looking at content, this is on Instagram. This is a piece that got over 2,000 shares. It's got over 100,000 likes. This is content that the world does find fascinating and want to engage with. And this is a great piece. It sort of talks dually about AI and the risk that people face in things like data protection, but it is just another incredible story. And as we say, it's that sticky story that people want to share and engage with. I'm going to show this because I think it's a fascinating piece and hopefully just connects to that sense of the way the world is going in terms of the risks of AI, and therefore the real requirements that we've got to look at what criminals are doing, or actually these are Harvard students, they're not criminals, but what criminals could be doing and could be using technology for, and therefore make sure that as L&D comms professionals, we are doing similar work internally to make sure we are motivating mindsets and behaviors. But let's have a little look at this now.
To use it, you just put the glasses on, then as you walk by people, the glasses will detect when somebody's face is in frame. This photo is used to analyze them, and after a few seconds, their personal information pops up on your phone. Cambridge Community Foundation. Oh, hi, ma'am. Wait, are you Betsy?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I think I met you through like the Cambridge Community Foundation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great to meet you. I'm Kane.
Oh wait, Do you happen to be the person working on like minority stuff for like Muslims in India at all or something?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you Kashif?
Yes.
Oh, I've read your work before. It's super cool. So here's how it works. We stream the video from the glasses straight to Instagram and have a computer program monitor the stream. We use AI to detect when we're looking at someone's face. Then we scour the internet to find more pictures of that person. Finally, we use data sources like online articles and voter registration databases to figure out their name, phone number, home address, and relatives' names. And it's all fed back to an app we wrote on our phone. Is your address 4 Valley?
Yeah.
And so they go on to continue showing how they can very rapidly rip all this information, completely dox somebody, and begin effectively a sort of a confidence trick right there on the street. And that kind of viewing really motivates people to think, well, not me. I need to brush up on my fraud training. I want to make sure I don't fall foul of it, even if people have all this information. People need to step up and understand those risks, the heightened risks, and be more connected to the role and the things that they need to do in each situation to make sure bad actors do not win. And we know this sort of storytelling is really impactful. We're 12 times more likely to remember stories than stats alone. So whether it is through film, whether it's through those narratives that we create through interactions, or even just in simple text, we have to think about telling stories that move people through content rather than, again, hitting them with those walls of text. And there are great ways that you can start to shape and structure stories with the existing content that you may already have using some AI tools as well. And when we look at this sense of stories, stories that really connect to that individual sense of purpose, that personal sense of potentially loss of all your family photos on your phone if somebody gets access to it, those personal impacts of what might happen if you were defrauded, those things can motivate people to change. That sense of purpose connects to me as an individual, also the role that I play in the organization. And once you've motivated that sense of purpose and got people to understand what it is we're really looking for them to do in their context, you can build that sense of belief around the roles that they play and start to drive change. And so I wanted to show a very quick example. Again, I promised a multimedia experience. So wanted to just show a key piece where rather than using fear to motivate, we celebrated the role individuals play. And if you're in financial services, this is a key one around raising suspicious activity reports, which seems like a sort of, it might end there for people. And so demonstrating what happens once those reports are raised, following it through to its end conclusion, we can see what that simple action of raising a report can actually do to keep people safe. I'll let the film do the rest of the talking. So that was a piece created with a charity called Stop the Traffic. So motivating people to understand the risks of modern day slavery and human trafficking, and just those simple actions that they can take can really support law enforcement and everything that they're trying to do on the front lines. So I guess that, those kind of films that you might have seen there, that we are entering a stage where there's ability to scale using AI to create that kind of content rapidly. If you've got the right story, the right structure, the right prompts, Those are the kind of things that you can create, which means, very quickly we can start to scale that kind of impactful storytelling up, that purpose-driven motivational storytelling to all audiences that you might be facing into. So understanding each of the different job roles, where they sit, what those variations might be, and generating variations of content that does celebrate purpose and is very specific to role. I guess just to talk about another area, perhaps where AI can't yet tread, is when it gets really authentic, right? We know authentic stories drive interest and shape culture. A personal level, when I've seen people or programs that are filmed in your local area, you're kind of more engaged, more excited. And we're seeing a big trend for organizations to, rather than rely on case studies of other people when they've got it wrong, to really start to look back at the historic issues that they may have faced and tell very authentic stories to make sure that everybody understands the risks and the culture and the developments around risk and compliance within that organization. So being able to lean into very authentic, real stories adds a lot of credibility and value, particularly around engagement. And so working with a global bank, we also looked at these issues of conduct and the stories that can be told around those. And the power in these authentic stories, I think, is evident when you watch. So let's have a look at this.
I felt anxious. In fact, actually, I'd like to use the word terrified. I thought that I could be perceived as a troublemaker.
I felt guilty. I felt I'd done something wrong. You think the worst.
I thought to myself, what is going on? What have I done?
I was really shocked, and immediately I feel very ashamed.
I did think, wow, this could be the end of my career.
So where challenges have been faced and overcome, and those personal narratives that are brought to life, sets us up, because we know successful stories acknowledge challenges, and by facing into those and the very real risks people have encountered, again, you're building up that sense of a risk culture where people take responsibility and get to the right outcome. These are trying to build that psychological safety across the board, that having conversations is the right thing to do, that escalating in the right way is the right thing to do. If our intention is not just to make compliance learning better, but to truly build a risk culture, it's an incredible way to start doing that. So onto the topic of adaptive learning, which I see as an end to the sheep dip approach, that sense of taking everybody, no matter who they are, where they are, and dunking them through the same learning content, hoping for a positive outcome. We are into a new world when it comes to AI, but just to make sure we've gone back through it, adaptive learning is a dynamic approach that tailors content to an individual's learning needs. So you may have done it on multiple different programs before, in onboarding, for example, making sure that anybody who has, not necessarily new to the role, but they might be new to your organization, you can take them through an assessment that will see, have they ticked all the boxes that we need them to have, and therefore do they have to go through all this required learning for that role? Which we've seen, we work with a great UK charity in the children's space, and they wanted to make sure that anybody who's experienced in safeguarding with children can be on the phones quicker than anybody else. And so we were able to use that adaptive learning approach to enable them to fast track people onto the phones quicker, which is a really important part of the request that we had there. And ultimately, adaptive learning is all in the logic. I mean, this is stuff that you can do using all the basic rapid authoring tools that are available to you, providing a test out of content for anybody that achieves a pass grade. So simply taking that logic of saying, yep, culturally, we're going to show you a film so that we understand everybody is brought up to speed with the requirements of this particular issue, this particular compliance issue. But once everybody has seen the film, we're also going to give them the opportunity to test out and prove their knowledge so they don't have to go through the rest of the learning. And so applying that logic can be done very simply and effectively with the tools that are already at many people's disposal. And then we sort of take that approach and really start to amplify it up. Because logic will take you from A to B, as Einstein said, and what webinar is complete without a quote from Einstein. Logic will take you from A to B, but imagination will take you anywhere. So from that sort of foundation of the right kind of learning logic, the rigor behind the learning experience design, the deep understanding of the SMR content, how do we take that and take it to the next level? And as sort of learning comms professionals, this is where we start to move into this world of Gen AI powered program creation. And really, I mean, quite passionate. I sort of said at the very beginning, this is the dawn of the L&D nirvana. Like I spent years, very early on, in working in learning, not really understanding what SCORM compliant really was, all those wonderful things, and sort of asking people and designing solutions where we'd say, well, we'll put free text entry in here. Let's really test whether people know what's going on, because they should be able to write the response and get that answer. And ultimately, that could never be read. People would turn around and go, well, it's SCORM compliant, so no one's ever going to read it. It's not actually going to do anything. It's not smart enough to push back information to you based on the text that you've written in. And so as a sort of bit of a personal mission that one day we could solve that challenge, and AI has come to the rescue to really look at taking all that logic, as we say, and building it out. And if anybody's not familiar with the latest reports on AI from Don Taylor and Egler, I suggest you download it and read it. We can put the link in the chat, but there's a fascinating read on all the ways that learning professionals are starting to use AI. And as I've started to coin it, it's the 6D in the 5DI process, which is delegate. So at each stage of that 5DI process, what tasks can we delegate to AI in order to improve the way that we're designing content and ultimately create a better learning experience design? And so just to talk that through currently, right, looking at that sense of logic, all the things we already have at our disposal, use of SME bots or sort of combined LXD and SME mind is the best application currently for the technology in the compliance space. So ultimately, sort of curated, fully curated, manicured, reviewed. There's always going to be human review. We're not taking that out of the loop. Humans are always going to stay in the loop of this process. To take that multi-use content and apply the learning logic, a couple of key benefits are that logic and that content and the thinking that the AI generated SME bots create is not going anywhere. It's laying a foundation of logic and content that can be used this year and beyond. As your risk in your organization comes down around AI, as you select the tools that are going to be used forever, or maybe even actually, looking at some of the AI tools that the business might bring in, as a barrier between the business and the customer to do those initial assessments, those things are going to be available. That information, that knowledge is going to be available to you and to the wider business throughout. But just to look at the knowledge inputs, we can strip existing learning. We can take content from your SMEs, their latest policies, procedures, processes. We can do the audience and outcomes, deeper workshop outputs from review of that sort of the content structures with your SMEs. Or you don't even need to look internally. If there's any sort of queries about risk, about using all your internal policies, the external view, the regulator's landscape is fully published and open sourced. So in this space, you can rapidly accelerate to build the required level of content. Then ultimately you go into the bot design. And so this might sound technical, but one of the greatest things about AI for everybody is that this is natural language. Natural language is your only barrier to entry for creating a bot. And very soon it'll be your only barrier to entry for creating many things. But within that process, if you're taking all that content, you're taking the perfect learning experience design that you want to create, this is a way of rapidly accelerating it. So the SME bots, all that content is there, but it's supported by your scenario generator. So you can build out a generator that takes that information, is also aligned to a persona mapper. So working back through all your learner data, really analyzing what everybody needs to know. Those things can be built out as bots that all communicate to each other to create the right kind of outputs. So that's scenario scripts, comms and videos, adaptive learning, point of need resources. So we say this is multi-use content. And right now, I see it as very effective in content creation, and we're doing lots of programs that look at this, making sure we've got the right kind of SME reviews throughout, and the right kind of content being developed to make sure this isn't just another period of text-based click next content, right? This is not about just rapidly creating loads more compliance content that people are going to not want to do and just bang their head against the wall or write all the answers of how to cheat. The power here is really taking the experience to the next level. So if you're going to start doing this, and maybe you already are, I mean, that wouldn't be uncommon these days. So consider what we really need to assess as you go through that process to prove compliance. If we take all the logic from the past, we're just going to be assessing pass rates, completion rates, because that's what the business wants to show. So everybody is tick, approved to work in the business because they've done the training, right? If that's what we want to assess, then we're not going to be moving the dial. Ultimately, it's around assessing the applied knowledge in the moment. For me, right? You may have other views of what you want to do, but I think that view of what people know and that they know when in each situation that they're in, and in a situation that is very relevant to them, that in each situation, they know how to apply that knowledge in the moment. Ultimately, that is what learning is. It's actually doing the do. It's not the knowledge retained. And so if we just keep assessing retained knowledge, we're not going to move the dial. And so there's this huge opportunity to take all that technology, take the thinking and approaches and build it out into something far more engaging, which in a world of learning, I mean, gamification potentially has been and gone. People might argue the sort of gamification of compliance training, we've seen go very wrong, and arguably some cultures love it. That is very true. I mean, it probably very much depends on your learners, but we've also seen it in lots of instances where adding game concepts to compliance just made it longer. And realistically, currently, most people just want their compliance learning to be over. So taking the idea of gamification, we're not talking wizards and coins and badges. We're talking about gamifying people's reality, building that context up to be able to create an assessment of their applied knowledge. And as we're doing that, we can also add in some additional measures throughout, right? Which means we can start to assess whether people are confident that they know the right thing and what their actual competence is. And so that'll give us a measure of risk of where people think they know everything, but they don't. So analyzing that confidence versus competence. Risk identification. Do they know the risks? And do they know how to mitigate against those risks appropriately for your organization? These things give real value to the business to understand the risk landscape and turns you into more of a strategic advisor when you can go back with your data that proves these are risk areas, this is what people don't know, these are the main challenges for us. Knowledge, again, I still think it's important. I mean, there's obviously ways if people don't understand what fraud is or how it manifests, there's still a sense that actually that applied knowledge and a deeper knowledge can be assessed throughout those scenarios as well. But ultimately, we can start to look at the skills throughout those scenarios. Do people have the right level of communication? Are they curious enough to find out more things? I mean, things that L&D has been wanting to build and assess and have created lots of content for, your curiosity module, your critical thinking modules. This is the way to start assessing those on a regular basis for people and potentially provide a bit of a stickier return point for compliance content. Maybe this year I got 100%. I passed all my compliance applied knowledge pieces, but actually I got a 50% on communication. I don't believe that's true. I'm going to come back for it. Maybe that's wishful thinking, but we're here to dream. So just thinking about how that happens and how we start to leapfrog that rapid content creation phase. I think it is actually about the sort of last two words in this statement. I think as professionals in the space, we have to expect more of the experience we create. And only when we expect more will our learners expect more, and will we get that heightened engagement with the content we create. So with the AI opportunity is the real opportunity to shape our own expectations of what is possible. And I'm going to show here another program we created with a global bank, just to think about, maybe some of this. And actually, this is quite a few years old now for us, and we're starting to think about different ways of using the same kind of simulation, the same experience, but really change what we do with it. I'm going to talk it through, and then I'll talk through, what we're doing differently today. This actually doesn't have sound. It is just a screen recording currently. But ultimately, we were creating a program around global risk and the second line of defense. It starts with a really nice film calling out the risk and the statistics around some of those critical topics within risk. But what we were aiming to do, and actually what we achieved, I should say, is build a simulation that does, as we said before, gamifies the reality of the second line of defense colleagues. Now, most compliance training, or lots of compliance training, might come with a complete scenario that says, here's all the information you need to know about this customer. What would you do? Are they dodgy or not? Right? That's your multiple choice, classic multiple choice. But life is not full of end-to-end complete scenarios, and you actually have to go and do things. You have to go and discover and use your curiosity and engage and search the internet and look at Google Street View and all those things to build a proper risk profile about a customer before you would engage and onboard them potentially. So this is around building those behaviors. It's about looking at all the kind of requests that you might get. So up pops relationship manager that's desperate to onboard a client that they've worked with before. You sort of take that call, hear from them. They have worked with them before, as I said, and they've got a great opportunity. They think it'd be madness if we didn't work with this client. They're called the Weber account, and they want to get on with it as soon as possible. And so in this situation, we were still building out the learning. So we're training behaviors through this, which is to, if you receive a call from someone like this, you have to go through and think about all the key information you need to take out of the brief that you've been given on this customer. So I'll let this play through, kind of go to collect the information here. We pull the relationship manager's name, we pull the country's name, the company's name, the country they operate in, and the fact that they've already got a private wealth fund with the bank. And then we finish this. And the solution then evolves so that you get additional information served to you once you have completed each stage. So again, we've now got the company profile. We can go in, pull out a couple of key contacts within that organization. We can review that documentation and store it in our inventory for review later. It now pops up on our screen as something we can do. Because we've got the name of the client, we can go in and apply that Weber group into this sort of CODUP of Google. And again, go in, pull out the requisite information. All of this is the kind of stuff you would want your second line of defense teams to be doing. Okay, we've got some more information now. We can go back in, we can start a chat with the relationship manager. And we're served kind of, again, this was click next, or not click next, but multiple choice questions to go back and ask Jack. You can't engage that chat until you've found out information. So if we hadn't found this information about the president, we wouldn't be able to ask it of Jack yet. And so this was all about training people to go through that process, understand what they needed to do in those situations. Again, looking at different country risk issues and all of that kind of information. Now, the next sort of future iteration here is to take these structures and these kind of templates that we've created and not just use them as a guided thing, or you can for new joiners, new to role, etc. You could build those scenarios out in that way, but actually to turn this into an assessment. So if we don't have the information flagged up as we have it here, collect the information. If we don't have that, how good are the people? How good is this persona at identifying the risk things, the names, the countries? How good are they at pulling that out of the right information? If and only if they collect all the right information, they spot the red flags in a customer's account, they read all the right things, and they apply the right levels of risk rating and demonstrate they know what to do in each situation. If it's an assessment, if they don't do all of that, they're then given remedial content. They're then given adaptive learning that guides them through all the things that they've demonstrated they don't know and don't know how to do. But again, we can then assess for applied knowledge in a context like this. Something that feels more engaging, that elevates the experience, that tries to make you feel as cool as, I mean, I'm showing my age here, but Jack Bauer in 24, right? You're out here stopping terrorists. That's what you do. And you do that in your role, right? We can make that experience feel cool. We can gamify their reality, allowing them to build behaviors and allow us to assess the behaviors and competencies that people have. So we talked a bit about some of those skills, critical thinking, absolutely front and center as you analyze those pieces, maybe communication. We can add in, like, send an email to the customer. Which email do you want to send? And make sure they've got the right tone of voice. And not too many steps away, we will be able to have AI at the heart of learning solutions that basically allows you to write a free text email, right? That says, write an email back to Jack that says, Jack, thanks for your call. I've got all these concerns about X, Y, and Z. We need to do further due diligence. And you click send and that goes off, and the AI can come back with Jack's response. It can also analyze your ability to write a coherent email. Maybe if somebody does think their compliance learning is boring, they might just write boring and hit enter, and we can have a bit of a fun chat back with them. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I know you thought it was boring, but this is actually live. We're actually doing this now. Those steps are very close. And if we're looking at regenerating new waves of compliance content this year, this is the year to lay the foundation. If it's next year is the year to lay the foundation. But things may have already moved on by then. I'm not going to recommend tools here because the tools are constantly evolving, and you may only be able to access certain ones. But the thinking, I'm hoping that what we're really setting up here is that idea that actually the logic, your learning experience design logic, is what you can start to capture now against the SME content. But ultimately, that desire and need to create a better learning experience, that can happen today, and you can start to build up and lay those foundations so that next year, over time, you can start to map and annually assess those skills that are required for your business. Just finally, because obviously people are still tracking attendance as a critical piece, tracking completion rates, that's 78% completion rates. I wanted to take on this challenge. Lots of people have issue with integration and the ability to capture the right level of data around their organization. We've worked with very highly regulated financial organizations globally. We've worked with retail organizations globally that you can do this. Like, data can be captured. It is not the major challenge that it has once been, right? As long as you're willing to put some time in up front and maybe spend a bit of time with the right supplier to map out those processes and work with your internal security teams. We've done that on projects, right? It doesn't have to take a long time. If you've got the right provider with the right level of ISO certification, that can be done. And it's not impossible to do at all. You can be providing SCORM compliant data out to the learning management system, whilst also through APIs taking data that actually is meaningful to you and to the organization and turns you into that strategic advisor. And so I sort of made light of it here with this little GIF, because genuinely these are things that can be done, and if there is a will there, then there is absolutely a way to do it. And I think we're sort of beyond that stage of it feeling difficult. It's time to do it and to start using that data to then inform future iterations of the content that you create. Okay, so I mean, beyond some of the slides I have, I'm kind of at the end of time. We're at 39 minutes. I see we've got up to 19 people. It's pretty good. Thank you so much for joining. Are there any questions? I'm going to stop sharing for a minute, because if there are questions, I can't actually see them. So hang on, let's find a better way to do that. No, great. It doesn't look like there are. Okay, a couple of things just to pick up, right? Because I mean, I guess that there's just some extra insight. I mentioned Don Taylor and Egler's research on AI, and there's a couple of bits that I sort of want to pull out where possible. So looking at the information that we have at the back end here, these are the most common use cases currently for AI in L&D. So creating learning content faster, improving efficiency and reducing costs within L&D. I think all of that stuff starts to become clear as we look at some of the use cases we talked about today. Using data analysis to support decision making. Again, that's a new one, but in that sort of the front end of your 5DI process, that define that phase, great ways to analyze the data that already exists and is available. And that can be business data, that can be learner data. And hopefully next year it'll be your data because we've got that coming out of the content we create. Clearly, we've talked about personalization and adaptive learning, that ability to scale content from one source of truth, one learner profile, but then mapping out your learner profile is a great way to build out that adaptive learning. Improving the quality of learning design. Now, that is probably the one that I wanted to focus on the most here, is that this is not about just rapidly creating loads of content and different pathways for people. We have to really focus on what the key benefits are to the organization and to us as individuals and to learners at the end of the day, that we are improving the quality of learning design. And it is a great opportunity to take all the efficiency leaps that we've seen above here and really start to build out something that is impressive, wows people, and builds the L&D brand back up. Of course, I mean, I've talked very flippantly around data and capturing data, and we really understand there are those concerns, particularly around AI and the ways the content that's being included within it. But these are the top reasons that people do not currently use AI within the organizations, or issues and barriers to using it. That lack of, first of all, data privacy, as we say. I mean, obviously, understandable. Things have to be done correctly, slowly, considerately, and appropriately. But then when you look at this sense of lack of trust in AI outputs, that again is where, if this is not my rallying cry for humans to fight against the machines, but this is it, right? You're not going to be deploying AI without human review in the loop. You look at all that bot creation, that's constantly an issue. We've got to constantly go in and check the bots are outputting the right thing. The bots have been designed the right way. You've got to run tests with them. You've got to refine, improve. This is not less work because AI is doing it. This is as much work. I mean, you've seen if you read any of the stats on, which I advise you do, LinkedIn and Microsoft's latest analysis of people using AI, majority of people, I think it's like 71%, are saying that actually AI is giving them more work to do. And there's a reason for that. It's because there is more work to do to get your AI the right way, and it will constantly need updating and support. So allowing, anything that we create to just be handed over to AI is not right. And so ensuring you put that human time and effort in to make sure it's right is absolutely critical. Lack of skills in the L&D team. Again, I'd say this is natural language is your only barrier. Maybe the wrong tools in the L&D team, but natural language is the only barrier to entry with AI, unless you want to go and build your own new piece. But most of it is all about what you can say to the system, what you can type in, and what you can get back. And of course, integration issues with other systems. That for me is where you're starting to look to deploy an AI as the solution, right? And that is not necessarily where we're starting to talk today. There is that opportunity to use it in the content creation, in that development phase, the design development phase. There are powerful ways that you can start doing it today, which, as we talked about, lay the foundation. So once your systems are ready to take something more complicated, built out, with that AI bot at the heart of the solution, so it's giving you those unique learner interactions, that is potentially the issue around integration. And please don't let me stop you. If you want to start doing that today, integrating those things, absolutely, it's all possible. It can be done. It will be amazing. So do look at those pieces as well. But there is that huge opportunity before you get to that stage. I'm not going to go through all of these, but the information is there. We will, as I say, put out the research for as part of this, because it is a great piece of research, something that everybody should be engaging with if they work in learning design. showcasing all the great ways that pieces are being done. Some great case studies at the back of that. And ultimately, I hope this has been useful, talking through some of the case studies and the applied use of where we're starting to integrate into compliance in particular. And I will leave it there. I mean, I may have opened a further can of worms, so I'm going to do one final sort of stop share to see if there are any other questions coming through. Andreas, thank you very much. Very useful. I'm glad you liked it. Thank you. Do we have any courses or webinars like this? So no, we don't. We have this free webinar. But in terms of courses on AI creation, yes, we do. And use of, the bots and designing programs. We tend to operate very, as you'd hope, right? We tend to operate a very practical application of the sessions and training that we do. So working alongside teams, understanding the use and applying it across simple programs so we can guide and support throughout. There's a couple of ways that you can do it, but that information is there. If anybody has any questions about those courses, we will probably be publishing some of those alongside this a bit later on. And yeah, we can talk further, but anytime, let me know. If there are any other challenges, any other questions. Oh, here we go. Oh, look at that. Thanks, Dan. Amazing. Yeah, he's not a plant. I'm not Donald Trump. I've not stuck Dan in the barbershop. He joined of his own free will and said lovely things. We've done some great stuff with Dan. It's very true. And yeah, I think the power, I think, of AI is in how good your content and LXD design ambitions are. I'm just going to end on that. And say thank you to everybody. And the Villa, thank you very much. I'm glad you enjoyed the examples. And any more, if anybody wants to reach out, please do. And I'm always happy to talk about compliance. I do love compliance. I do love compliance learning. The secret's out. Thank you all. Bye-bye.